Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to KIMS Hospital Q1 FY22 earnings conference call hosted by IIFL Securities Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Rahul Jeewani from IIFL Securities Limited. Thank you and over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rahul Jeewani from IIFL. I thank the KIMS management team for giving us the opportunity to host this call today. From KIMS, we have with us Dr. Bhaskar Rao Bollineni, Founder and Managing Director, Dr. Abhinay Bollineni, Executive Director and CEO, and Mr. Vikas Maheshwari, CFO. I hand over the call to the management team for their opening remarks, post which we will open the floor for Q&A. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon to all of you. I extend a hearty welcome to all of you for the first investors meet of KIMS Hospitals. I thank you for the confidence you have reposed in us, and we assure you of a financial secure and a rewarding future. Before I go to financials, let all of us from KIMS congratulate our spectacular winners at the just concluded Tokyo Olympics. This is the best ever Olympics in India in terms of winning medals. The whole nation is rejoicing the occasion. Our kudos to not just the winners but also to all the participants of this international sports bonanza. Winning or not winning is a part of the game. What matters is participation, and we are proud of all of our Olympian stars. The personal encouragement our Prime Minister Modi ji gave to the players was indeed heartening. Now coming to business, during this unprecedented COVID crisis, KIMS rose to the occasion and did exemplary work by saving many lives in tough situations. I will now share few of the highlights. We did Asia's largest number of COVID lung transplants, 20, till 30th June this year. In anticipation of increasing needs, we acquired further ECMO machines, and it had enormously helped in treating COVID patients effectively. We now have 18 ECMO machines in this, possibly the largest number in a single center in the country, and we treated nearly 50 plus COVID patients on ECMO machines, out of which 10 were doctors brought from various parts of the country who were serving COVID patients. Youngest COVID survivor, just a week old, was successfully treated and discharged from our mother and child unit, which is a matter of pride and satisfaction. Another accomplishment is the first known ECMO case of COVID positive child in India was successfully treated and discharged. Alongside COVID cases, we have done significant non-COVID work. A preterm baby weighing only 1100 grams was successfully discharged after undergoing a heart procedure. A rare kidney transplant between two non-compatible blood groups was successfully done. A 3-month-old baby underwent a rare spinal deformity surgery. An infant born with a rare and a complex RH issue was successfully treated and discharged. Advanced plasma transplantation was performed on a 6-year-old suffering with a rare genetic condition. Successful treatment of such critical cases is a matter of great professional satisfaction and speaks volumes about professional expertise and medical infrastructure available with us. Now we come to the financial performing of the company. Financial year 22 Q1 revenue and EBITDA growth is partly on account of the low base during the last financial year due to a lockdown, which makes Q1 FY21 not a comparable quarter. Growth during Q1 financial year 22 was on account of following. Contribution from ECMO and heart and lung transplant program has doubled compared to previous quarter. Higher occupancy of COVID patients when compared to the previous quarter. In addition, vaccination revenue, RT-PCR tests, COVID home care and COVID hotel packages also contributed significantly. In order to excel and surge ahead, we have identified 4 core points called as 4 C's. The first C is cost. We will focus on reducing the cost for the patient through innovation and cost effectiveness in our organization. Second C is about comfort. For the patient from the starting point to his total recovery, the patient should have physical, emotional and financial comfort. Third C concerns clinical outcome. We will maximize our expertise to ensure best clinical outcome as a continuous basis. Fourth C is about compliance of all statutory norms without fail as a dutiful corporate citizen. These 4 C's will drive our expansion and growth trajectory. Friends, if we adhere to these 4 C's, namely cost, comfort, clinical and compliance, rest assured we will reach the pinnacle in the field. We will use our technology and resources to focus on these 4 core points. Coming to the business expansion, I am pleased to inform you that keeping future expansion in view, KIMS Kondapur had entered into a lease agreement for a land and building. We are already experiencing shortage of beds at KIMS Kondapur, and there is a lot of scope for serving the medical needs of people in that area. I consider it is a good opportunity to strengthen KIMS Kondapur. Let me assure that your KIMS will always be a dynamic in action, professional in approach, caring in treatment, relentless in our efforts in maximizing the return on your investments. By your investments, you have become a part of KIMS family. We are living in COVID times and the pandemic will be there around for some time to come. We are witnessing resurgence of cases in America and Europe. In some parts of our country also the situation is far from satisfactory. The only way we can safeguard ourselves is by taking all the precautions like social distancing, by keeping ourselves away from social gatherings, sanitation and wearing the mask invariably while outside home. These precautions are mandated to protect ourselves from this virus. You may wonder why I am speaking on this issue here. This is so because we care for you, and as a healthcare expert, it is my primary duty to alert you about the possible onslaught of the virus. Prevention has to become a way of life, like waves, it can surface again and again, and we have to brace ourselves accordingly. I once again thank you and welcome you to family of KIMS, assuring you to a fruitful association. Thank you very much. We can open for questions and answers.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Participants, to ask a question, you may press star and 1 now. The first question is from the line of Praveen Sahai from Edelweiss Financial Services. Please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my question, and many congratulations for a good set of numbers. My first question is related to the occupancy and the operating beds. Can you give the numbers for the quarter? How much is an operating beds, and also the occupancy, as you have mentioned in the presentation, there is a good improvement in occupancy. Can you give a highlight on the COVID and non-COVID occupancy level?
Basically, the quarter where compared to COVID and non-COVID, nearly the last quarter is totally on non-COVID work was coming on to the pre-COVID era of 2019-20 financial year. And suddenly the COVID has come. So we were partly doing COVID and non-COVID work. Nearly 70-75% of the workload is from non-COVID only. 25% of the work when compared to the entire quarter is around COVID. Mostly the heart and lung transplant has been contributed a lot because of so many 18 ECMO machines we kept, which is a very high-end procedures. The second important thing, the COVID was there for a month. So the rest of the 2 months, while beginning of the COVID and coming down on the COVID, there is a little lag period. So now it has been picked up well. So mostly, as you see that there will be OP volumes come down to nearly 3%, and the IP volume was OP volume is 30% and IP volume was 3%. Because the periods between transmission from non-COVID to COVID, COVID to non-COVID, that's the reason the volume has come down. Otherwise, during the COVID time, the entire occupancy was very, very high, even more than expected, than usual. Because of that, the volume has come down.
And just to give you a number on, we have a total bed capacity of 3,056, of which 2,500 beds are operational. But if you look at the overall occupancy in the total capacity for the quarter, it had been around 58 to 62%.
Sorry, 58 to, what do you say? 58 to 60?
60%, correct.
Okay, okay. Great. And next question.
Bed capacity, just to
yeah, got it. The next question is related to if you can quantify the COVID revenue, how much you generated for a quarter.
COVID revenue?
Nearly 25% of the total quarter revenue belongs to COVID and 75% is the non-COVID.
Okay, great. Lastly, sir, I'll come back after that in the queue. So, as also you had mentioned in the, hired additional medical staff nurses for this quarter, and your employee expenses as also on the quarter basis, if I look at the total amount has been increased. So, how much is sustainable in the nature, the employee expenses? Is the current quarter run rate to sustain over here?
Actually, nearly 300 staff has been recruited specifically for the COVID. During the COVID time, we cannot able to put all the people as a routine duty. We need extra manpower. So we took them for that quarter of, when they been taken, we have to take them for 3 months. So the moment the COVID is over, after that they have been exited. So nearly 300 staff was being recruited and then only for the COVID purpose.
Okay, fine. I'll come back in the queue. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Gosar from Invesco. Please go ahead.
Hi team. Would like to understand, sir, what are we doing or the efforts that we are putting in to take KIMS brand beyond the core region?
Basically, as we planned in the road shows, I think we are on pretty well 100% on that. And now we are looking into Central India, one of the things that is coming. Maybe in a month or 2 months time, we could able to do that. And as I mentioned before, that in Kondapur, what we have been done in the road show, that we have been already done an agreement, MOU with them, and we are going ahead with that. The Chennai-Bangalore plans are also on, and because of the COVID and both the states, it is getting delayed for a 4 to 6 weeks. Otherwise, whatever is the plans that we have been planning both those 2 places, they are on.
Got it, sir. And we should be taking more inorganic approach going forward for the expansion beyond core areas?
Both inorganic and organic. Semi-brownfield rather.
Right. And have we been able to zero down any assets that could be of interest to us?
Yes, in Central India, Maharashtra, we've been able to zero down on 1-2 assets, but we're yet to get final clearances, and then we'll present it to the board and send out an official note. It should probably be done in the next 20 to 35, 40 days.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anubhav Agarwal from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon. Am I audible properly, sir?
Yes,
you're audible.
Great. So just one clarification first on the Kondapur. So after this lease agreement, what will be the new addition of beds that we can do over there, and when those beds will be operational?
So the new Kondapur hospital will have total of 700 to 800 beds, and this will be deployed over a period of time. In phase 1, we're looking to operationalize an incremental 250 beds. So that is the current 250 beds will scale up by an additional 250 beds and take it to 500 beds. And this could be commissioned in the next, like we said, 30 to 36 months. And based on ramp up and occupancy of these beds, we will then commission the incremental 250 beds.
So this land is very adjacent or very close to what the existing hospital is?
Correct. We were very fortunate to having found this land very close to our current hospital. So we will then slowly transition from the current facility into the new campus. Once the new campus is ready within a 6-month to 9-month period.
And you said that in 3 years you can have this 250 beds occupied.
Correct. So in 3 years we will have 500 beds built up. We will then let go of the existing facility and move to the completely new facility where we will have 500 beds operational. So that will be an incremental of only 250 beds because we currently are anyways occupying 250.
Oh, now I understood. And the second question was, you mentioned about COVID benefit, but when I look at your EBITDA of 149 crores in this quarter, you also had benefit from vaccination, RT-PCR tests, etc. So if, let's say, if you talk only about that benefit as one segment and you separate out the hospital bed occupancy by a COVID patient, how much would have been that extra benefit which I would have offered in this quarter?
So, the performance will be very similar to what it was in Q4. Unfortunately, because the COVID pandemic lasted for almost 35 to 45 days during the month, there is generally a slowdown, before the pandemic, and there is a time it takes for it to uptake again after the pandemic. So, hence it will be, that is the gap that we've seen. And, ideally it would have been a better quarter than quarter 4. But because of these challenges, we were constrained with, and we weren't able to see a number that was significantly higher than what it delivered in Q4.
So, just like you guys did a bit of about 105 crore in quarter 4, let's say little better could have been 110 crore. So, ballpark, very ballpark, we can work with this number that at least 35 crore kind of 35-40 crore number could have come extra from this extra opportunities which came in this quarter.
Correct. You're absolutely right.
Sure.
So we also mentioned that 25% of the revenue typically came in from COVID, and that is close to 100 crores. And usually the incremental margin would be around the number that we typically got. But even if it was a complete clean month, I think the company would have grown a little more than what it did in Q4.
Okay. And just the clarity on the ARPOB level. So, for example, 27,000 is pretty high. So once the situation has normalized more now in July and August, are you back to that corporate level, ARPOB level of more like 21K, 22K now?
You're right. We will normalize to that number. There was a significant change in the payer mix in this quarter, which we believe has already normalized in the month of July. and we're seeing the similar trend to continue in August and September.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Prakash Agarwal from Axis Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and congratulations to management for very good numbers. First one, just couple of clarification actually. So one is on the occupancy levels. I missed the comment. So we were at about 58% as per presentation as on fiscal 21. What are the occupancy levels currently, sir?
So quarter one of FY22, like I mentioned, we would have been around 60-62% kind of an occupancy.
No. Okay, and but you also mentioned 25% is COVID-led.
Correct.
Okay, so
not of the occupancy of revenue.
Revenue is, and I believe occupancy also, right?
Correct.
Okay,
so the occupancy is, I cannot able to say, in one full 35 to 40 days, nearly 90% of the beds were occupied by the COVID only. The rest of the 55-60 days, a mixture of COVID and non-COVID work.
Okay. And moving forward, as you mentioned, the payer mix, which was much more favorable and which has led to higher ARPOBs and is normalizing seen in July month and going forward. So how do we think about the full year EBITDA margins, on a, going forward from here?
I think Q4 was a good quarter where things have normalized and we had seen very, very little impact of COVID in Q4. We should assume, historically we've been able to grow at a 15-20% growth rate on a year-on-year basis. So whatever we've achieved on Q4, we will certainly achieve that and grow beyond a 20% kind of a number on that, like as we did in the historical period.
So we are saying about 27-28% EBITDA margin is also possible going forward, be it COVID or without COVID also.
Correct. Yeah. As we've seen in Q4, we've been able to deliver a 28-29% margin. And we've seen similar trends even post the first quarter. So we believe that will sustain.
Okay. And lastly, on the run rate of that new facility that you started in Secunderabad, the kidney, lung and kidney, treatment.
Heart and lung program.
Yeah, heart and lung program. So what is the run rate today? As you mentioned, it's doubled versus last quarter.
So we said part of the incremental revenue is because of the growth that came in from the heart and lung program, which also runs the ECMO program.
Monthly run rate is at around 6 to 7 crore rupees per month, Prakash.
Per month, current run rate?
Yeah, per month run rate. Yeah, 6 to 7 crore rupees.
And this is doubled over similar quarter last year?
Yeah.
Last year the quarter was actually lockdown period.
Okay, so hardly anything. Understood. Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. We would like to remind participants that you may press *1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Ankush Mahajan from Axis Securities. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir, and congrats for a good set of numbers. Sir, my question is regarding to the growth part. Sir, I just try to understand what kind of a capex and what kind of a bed capacity that we are increasing going to for the next 2-3 years. And what kind of a growth like lung and heart programs they have contributed. So what kind of a growth that we are existing from the existing facilities and what kind of a growth that we are looking for on the new capex, new additional of bed. Can you throw some light, sir?
Right. So as you saw historically, if you divide our acquired assets and our mature assets, the mature assets have always been able to grow at a 10 to 12% kind of a growth rate historically for the last 7-8 years. And we've always been able to deliver a 20% growth rate for the overall company. And the way we've been able to do this is to acquire new assets. So the new acquired assets in the last 4 years have been able to keep up and help us deliver that 15 to 20% kind of a growth rate. So we believe if you take the acquired and the mature ones as one cohort, they will be able to generate a minimum of 10 to 12, 13% kind of a growth rate for many more years to come, given the available bed capacity and given the available space to expand in the current hospitals. In addition to this, we believe that the balanced growth rate will come in from the expansion projects that we are undertaking either in the home market, such as Kondapur, such as Dilshuk Nagar, and the other projects that we spoke about in the past in Andhra Pradesh, and also the projects that we're talking about in Tamil Nadu, in Karnataka, and the acquisition that we'll soon announce that could potentially happen in central India in the next 35-40 days. So that's where the balanced growth will come. But again, like I said in our presentation in the past, from a short term to medium term, you should still assume a lot of the growth will come from the incremental capex that we're doing within AP and Telangana, and the bed occupancies, the bed capacity that is available in the existing hospitals.
So can you throw some light, sir, on ballpark number, the kind of a capex and number of beds we are increasing?
So we're looking to add an incremental 1,500 beds, and this will happen over a period of 12 months to 36-40 months. And the incremental cost to deliver these 1,500 beds will be to the tune of around 90 to 1.1 crore per bed.
Would you repeat, sir?
90 lakhs to 1.1 crore a bed will be the cost of delivering this, but this will be delivered over a period of time.
With a period of time. So we are looking at current capacity 3050 and 1500 incremental.
Correct.
Okay. Sir, just try to understand, sir, as compared to peer, like we are launching this program like heart and lungs. So what kind of a uniqueness, sir, that we have that we as compared to peers for the value-added products, basically?
See, these heart and lung programs, not many centers in this country are doing. It's a transplant program, so it all depends on many factors. One, we require a well-trained, good teamwork. It's not only the surgeon, the entire team of 35 to 40, the intensivists, the anesthetists, the nursing staff, and the counselors, and the coordinators, and also we need to coordinate for the entire country where the organs are coming from. So that is one aspect. Second aspect also is a very complex procedure where the organs will not be available immediately. We need to put these patients on as a bridge from normal to the transplant. That's where we use these bridges as ECMO machines. There are people who will be there for 2 weeks to 6 weeks or even 8 weeks till the organ is going to get. So maintaining this ECMO machine is a very, very tough job because we need to expose the entire body to the extracorporeal system. So with this very complex procedures, as and not many centers in this country has been geared up to this level. That is the good opportunity we have been put in the right time for the right place, and that is the one which has been given some good results.
Okay, sir. So any other therapy that we...
Mr. Mahajan, sir, I would
Sure,
request you to rejoin the queue for follow-up questions.
Sure.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Deepen Seth from Crystal Investment Advisors. Please go ahead.
Hi, and thanks for the opportunity. First, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
All right. So, first of all, the numbers are really dazzling, and I think you are well set on a pretty long tenure runway of growth and prosperity, and it's primarily depending on, a function of the DNA with which you're running the enterprise. Let me put that out of the way first of all. A quick, insight that is lacking in the numbers, or maybe I can't join the dots here, sir. The doctor cost has do we see that being a big factor as we move forward, because that has not moved in tandem sequentially, maybe I'm overanalyzing here, in line with revenues. Is that something where you have an insight or color to share?
See, most of the doctors' payouts is very fixed in most of our Tier 2 or Tier 3 places.
Okay, sir.
And also in Tier 1 also, nearly Tier 1 is around 50% of them are fixed, and Tier 2 and Tier 3 is 95% of them are fixed salaries. So when there is over income has come, then when you calculate, these are all the operational performance will come. That's why the doctor's cost has come down. Maybe historically we are maintaining around between varies from 19 to 21% of the doctor's cost.
Right, sir.
The same thing.
Okay, and given our positioning as an affordable, multi-specialty, and highly skilled and reliable chain of hospitals, is this some kind of internal cost control or target that you think you can maintain as you grow up and scale up?
Yes, I think we are maintaining overall period, and then in the historically last few years. And moving forward also, we'll be very, very cautious, and the type of selection we do for the doctors and the other manpower. So
Right.
we'll keep in this, and then we don't want to spoil the historical things.
Okay. One more follow-up question, if you'll allow me, sir. The incremental capital deployment, you've already shared some insights in terms of the additional rollout that you're going to do. I have also noticed that you own, not minority, but significantly less than 100% stake in some of the hospitals and properties. Is that another place, scaling up ownership of some of the hospitals where we own 50-51% and so on in the chain? Is that going to be a part of the incremental capital deployment? Should we also expect something there? Is that relevant? Is that meaningful?
So these projects got commissioned only in the last 3 to 4 years. They're yet to see its maturity phase, and given the way they're located, we might look at eventually merging them with the other subsidiaries to make it a larger subsidiary, and then use the capital to deploy for growth in that geography.
Okay.
Or we could look at doing a 100% buyout based on what the other promoters or the other shareholders in the company want. But I think in the short term, we don't see anything on those lines at all.
Okay.
And we have not factored in that as a part of our capex build-up.
Understood. Thanks very much for the opportunity, sir. That'll be all. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ashwini Agarwal from Ashmore Investment Management. Please go ahead.
Hi, congratulations to the team. A very encouraging set of numbers. Just a couple of questions. One is around the excellent nature of margins that we've seen in the quarter. I'm just wondering how much of this is sustainable, because your payer mix has changed and your occupancy probably is not of the same. The occupancy mix has changed in favor of COVID. So you've probably seen a lot of operating leverage at play during the quarter, because your doctor cost as a percentage of revenue did come down. So is that a factor when you look at the EBITDA margin of 31%? Q4 was also 29%. But is 31%, is this sustainable, or are these extraordinary times and these are extraordinary margins?
This quarter is exceptional, but overall, moving forward, I think we will achieve the 28-29% of EBITDA margins moving forward. And what we have done because of the mature units growing at 10% and the acquired units and then other units which we are planning. So we are very confident that we may sustain the same EBITDA margins of 28-29%.
And there's been a lot of non-recurring revenue in this quarter. But even if you look at our real mature assets in Q4, they have actually delivered a margin which is slightly higher than the consolidated margin for the Q1. It is because of the drag on the newer facilities or the acquired facilities. The margin has actually come down to a 29%, but we're pretty certain we'll be able to sustain that. And as the acquired assets mature, there is scope for some margin expansion. Not a significant one, but some margin expansion.
Okay. And the second question relates to a previous question. You just spoke about adding something like 1,500 beds over the next 18 months or so at a cost of 90 lakhs to a crore per bed. But some of the land and some of the buildings are probably already with you. So what's the cash capex required over the next 18 to 24 months?
So we are talking about adding 1,500 beds over the next 40 to 48 months.
I'm sorry. I heard it as 18 months. Maybe my mistake.
Starting from 15 months to the next 48 months, in different timelines, you will see a lot of these beds being operational.
Okay. So what's your annual sort of capex that you're thinking about over the next couple of years?
So Ashwini, it should be more or less evenly spelled out because most of the things are greenfield projects which we are pursuing at Bangalore and Chennai, where the capex will be completed over a period of time and 36 to 40 months time. So the land cost will be upfront, but the rest of the construction and the medical equipment will be evenly spread out. So 1,500 beds at the cost of something like that 90, it requires something like that 1,300 crore rupees of the capex over a period of time, 4 years. And you can budget something like that 300 crore rupees of the capex per year.
Okay.
And we are generating something like that 300 crore rupees of the cash every year. And right now we are sitting on something like that 350 crore rupees of the cash. I think we are well positioned and well capitalized right now for this type of capex because of the balance sheet is very healthy.
Right. You have 600 crores of cash, no, on a consolidated basis?
So 600 crore rupees, you are correct, as on June. Out of that, 150 crore rupees is used for the repayment of the existing loan.
Borrowings. Right.
And then 85 crore rupees was because of this General Atlantic tax liabilities which we have to discharge as a company because they are subject to the long-term capital gain. So that amount has come to us. So this 85 crore rupees has gone. After that, we are left with some 350 crore rupees of the cash. So what I told 300 crore rupees cash is 50 crore rupees is the long-term debt is lying. So net basis 300 crore rupees is cash lying with us.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, you may press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Pritesh Chheda from Lucky Investments. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I have a couple of questions. So one, on the operating bed side, how much of operating bed should we see in 22 and 23? So we have about 2,500 is what you mentioned in quarter 1 out of 3,056. So this 2,500 should be scaled up to what number? And I'm hoping that this all should be from existing beds and your existing facilities.
Correct. So we currently have 3,000 beds already. That's the total capacity for which all of the capex is completed. Only some minor capex is left. So as and when required, we will keep operationalizing these beds. So I think within the next 24 months to 48 months, 24 months, we should reach a very high occupancy in the current beds. And then we will slowly start operationalizing them, the other beds.
No, I'm confused. So one way you are saying that 10 to 12% growth is from matured asset, which factors the bed addition. So ideally, this 3,000 beds should get operationalized over the next 2 years. Is how should I interpret your answer?
Correct. So that's what I'm saying. In the next 12 to 24 months, you should start. We will start moving from the 2,500 beds operational to a 3,000 beds being operational.
Okay. And all your new capex is any case lined up. That's so your completely new bed addition. When should that come to the system?
You should start expecting beds to start coming in from the next 15 months all the way to the next 48 months.
Okay. My second question is, on the occupancy side that we saw in the quarter one and what you were mentioning about quarter four, and you were mentioning that quarter one also had only a month's COVID. Considering the elective surgeries pent-up demand, and correct me if I'm wrong there in that assessment, is it fair to assume that occupancies, what we saw in quarter one, should sustain or should be higher as we move towards the forthcoming quarters?
At least what we've seen in July has been very similar to what we saw in quarter one. It could be because of the pent-up demand. We'll get things so far in August also remains very healthy. We should see how things pan out in the next half of August and leftover.
Okay. The other two bookkeeping questions I have. FY21, there was a significant rise in ARPOB in Secunderabad Hospital, and consequently there was a significant margin expansion. We went and checked the case mix. There was no much change in the case mix. So first of all, why this ARPOB rise happened, and is there any one-off in your margin number for 21, despite the fact that in the current quarter's commentary you mentioned quarter 4 is a more representative stable number. So I was just trying to connect the two facts, because on one side you had an ARPOB of 37,000 in Secunderabad last year, which was significantly higher. So if you could help us understand this math.
So the ARPOB moved from 26,000 to 38,000 from FY20 to FY21.
Yeah.
Also, if you look at the payer mix, there has been a significant movement in the cash payer, which has moved from 55% to almost 65%. And there's an improvement in insurance, which is from 17% to 18%. In addition to this, we have spoken about the heart and lung and ECMO program, which is a very high ARPOB clinical therapy. We've also strengthened our liver transplant program, which also delivers high ARPOB. So a mix of these initiatives helped achieve a significant jump in the ARPOB.
So, which means these are...
Mr. Chheda, sir, I would request you to rejoin the queue for follow-up.
Ma'am, this is a second question, and I'm just taking a clarification on it, ma'am. Is it sustainable, sir?
So what we have seen in Q4 is very similar, a 10% decline in that FY21 number, and we believe that is sustainable.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Agraj Shah from Tata AI Life Insurance Company. Please go ahead.
Congratulations on a great set of numbers. So I wanted a clarification on the presentation of slide 18. You said that a matured asset, the EBITDA margin is around 26.7% and the acquired asset is 20.2%. So how do you reconcile the fact that the overall company EBITDA margin is significantly higher than that?
So what we meant here was we had the matured metro assets delivering almost a 30% kind of a margin, and we had a matured assets in the tier 2, tier 3 markets delivering around 25-26%. And there were a lot of questions earlier whether the acquired assets in the tier 2, tier 3 will be able to scale up to that kind of a number. Hence, we had shown that FY20, FY21 delivered a decent jump, and Q1, FY22 also continued to maintain that trajectory.
Okay, so the Secunderabad and the Nellore hospital are at a much higher margin, and that explains the overall EBITDA margin being higher for the company level.
Correct.
Yes.
Oh, okay, fine. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anubhav Agarwal from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, sir. So one clarity that so far historically our maximum we have spent on putting up a bed is about 70 lakhs, and now we are almost going to 90 lakhs to 1 crore range. For these kind of new beds, will you maintain the same pricing policy of being, let's say, 20 to 25% lower than other hospitals on average? And do you see with that kind of that's first part of this question. And secondly is that do you see similar kind of returns being generated when you're putting up that kind of capex of 1 crore per bed?
The first question, see, basically the 90 lakhs to 1 crore, that means what we said is it is 20-25% of the peers we are lower, and now the steel and the cement and the land cost has increased.
We're going to the metro.
And then when we compare to the previous historically, now we are moving on to all the metros. So that is the reason this is the cost. What is the second question?
So would you keep the pricing still at discount? The pricing policy will change for this bed, or will you still keep the pricing policy same at 20% lower than the peers?
So we will continue to keep our pricing lower than competition, and as the prices of what doctor just mentioned moved up, we've also seen most of these markets, the ARPOB also moving up in the similar trend. So historically, yes, we delivered a 70 lakh per bed, but the ARPOBs were different then versus what it could potentially be in the future. So keeping that in mind and keeping the incremental costs that have happened, we've factored in that kind of problem.
Okay, sure. So yeah, my second part also gets answered through that. Just last question is on the payer mix. What is the group as a whole is doing to maintain, like Q1 we have a very good payer mix. If you think about 3 years down the line, what are the active efforts from your side to keep improving this payer mix? Can you just talk about this efforts?
Like we said, we have never focused on which payer to improve. We've built a hospital to accommodate all payers that come to the hospital. We put in efforts to ensure we're able to scale up clinical therapies across. Now it always kept happening by chance that the design of the payer has always been more skewed towards cash ins and less towards corporate advocacy. I think we'll continue to remain creating good hospitals. We'll be able to create large scale hospitals to accommodate all payers, and whatever comes by, we're more than happy to taper the model accordingly.
Just to add what Dr. Abhinay has told is that, say what happens is that if the occupancy reaches to the 70 to 80% level, then what happens, the unit heads try to take more cash and insurance patients than the corporate. But as we keep on expanding and add the beds, then we start taking all the patients further.
Correct. It's clear. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Praveen Sahai from Edelweiss Financial Services. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for taking my follow-up question. So one clarification on your expansion plan, as you had mentioned about the 5 different locations, the AP and Maharashtra. Are you going for expansion in the metro or tier 1, tier 2 cities? Metro.
Yeah.
And second thing is there any seasonality in your business on the quarter-on-quarter basis in the current existing beds?
You come again, please?
Yeah, so I'm asking is there any seasonality in your business on the quarter-on-quarter basis?
Seasonality? Is that what you asked?
Yes, yes.
No, it's not a very significant change usually quarter on quarter, but usually the second, third quarters or the mix between second and third are usually better than the rest. So if I have to just put it in a sequence, quarter 3 is the best, followed by quarter 2, followed by quarter 4, followed by quarter 1.
Okay. And on your heart and lung treatment program, how much of the maximum you can generate out of that? Because the numbers you had given about 6 to 7 crore per month right now, which is doubled so far. So how can go maximum?
This program in the country itself is very young. It's just a 3-year-old program, 3 to 4-year-old program at best. If you take the Western countries, they've been able to deliver close to 200, 250 lung transplants annually. India, all put together, has not been able to even touch 100 currently. So I think the scope is immense. There are a lot of logistic challenges that need to be sorted out. And as a pioneer in this therapy, we are working very closely with the government, seeking help and other organizations to solve the logic problems, which will then further help scale the number of transplants we are able to do in this space.
And we have a scope for improving or doubling further. Like we have a facility there, right?
Yeah. Facility is not an issue. It is largely more on the way it's structured currently and the regulations in the country, which we'll have to one has to solve along with the government.
Great. Thank you for answering my questions. All the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ayush Bhandari from Allegro. Please go ahead.
Hi. I have a couple of... so the first question is, how much was June revenue as a percentage of the total revenue in the quarter? And does 25% COVID revenue includes vaccine? And what was the total vaccine revenue?
The vaccine revenue is very minimal, nearly 550 lakhs, 5 lakhs, and mostly 5 crores. So in the...
Okay. And what was the June revenue as a percentage of the quarter?
June revenue as a percentage of the quarter would be around, I don't have the exact numbers offhand, but around 25 to 30%.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pritesh Chheda from Lucky Investments. Please go ahead.
So I just have one follow-up. On the hospitals where we do not have 100% ownership, which is about 1,300 beds, those 1,300 beds contribute what percentage of our EBITDA?
So in Q1, it constituted around 15% of the EBITDA.
Should it be similar last year as well, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So these beds are where we consolidate completely and then we take out the minority.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Milind Karmarkar from Dalal & Broacha Portfolio Managers. Please go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, congratulations on a good set of numbers. My first question was that, medicine is a noble profession. So when it comes to our charges, basically wanted to understand whether the low charges for the general public, is it because of higher government-aided patients, or is it because that our strategy is to deliver healthcare at lower cost?
Our strategy is to deliver at a low cost. That is one aspect. The second aspect is it's a noble profession. There is no doubt in it, and we strive all the healthcare workers relentlessly to treat the patients. Now there are so many angles in this country needs to be developed. It is going to sometime the government comes and says it is a business, and they all charges they like a business, like your taxes and your everything. And at the same time, we are struggling in the last 2 decades how to manage with the public. One side we are seeing ourselves, there is a lot of struggle. Even if we are the patients, then we need to face a lot of problems financially. But there is a solution for this. I keep on telling everywhere, the solution is to go for an insurance, which people are not able to understand. And the cost of the insurance is only a cup of coffee every day, which most of the people, public, can able to afford. Some sort of a awareness which we need to create amongst the public, that the other way we need to look into that in this country especially, it is going to be a employment creation, the healthcare, which we require. Even few millions of beds are required to treat our health. But to treat these things, we need a few crores of employment can be created. So the public, the government and the investors and the healthcare providers should able to take it in a serious note and give it in a better way. Now, India is going to be the hub of the many countries. People are still coming to India for the healthcare.
Right. So would it be correct to say that, in general, the healthcare industry is likely to grow significantly as penetration of insurance increases?
Yes. There is now, fortunately, some of the state governments and the central government is coming with a low insurance schemes like Ayushman Bharat, and every state has their own insurance. In Andhra and Telangana we have Arogyasri and all. Apart from that, there is a lot of corporates are also coming forward to their employees insurance. Even the middle class people also do for going for an insurance. So once the insurance business improves, definitely there is a lot of scope for this country to do healthcare.
Okay. My second question would be on our future growth strategy. So just wanted to understand, because we are adding about 1,500 beds, as you said, in next 3-4 years. So just wanted to understand what would be our focus. Would it be on an asset-light model, or we would prefer to have our own facilities?
Mostly we prefer to have our own assets because we done and calculated the light asset models will give a short-term benefit, but in a long term it will not be very good for the organization. So moving forward, wherever there is a possibility, we will try to go for a greenfield. If there is any expensive thing, we will try to acquire a light asset model, and also looking for a buyback of the asset over a period of time. So that will give a good, healthy financials for the organization.
Okay. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We would like to remind participants that you may press star 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Ayaz Motiwala from Nivalis Partners. Please go ahead. Mr. Ayaz Motiwala, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead with your question.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. So one quick clarification. You mentioned about payment of certain long-term tax dues, about 85 crores on behalf of GA. So did your sort of shareholder agreement have that clause, and how did that happen, sir? Can you explain that? And also, I note that the GA director has resigned. So what is the change taking place with that private equity shareholder? Any implications for us to understand in terms of how the company would be run going forward?
Okay, let me take this question. So as far as the tax liability which we have discharged on behalf of the General Atlantics, that money has come back to us from the IPO proceeds of the General Atlantic only. So the company has not spent that extra amount out of its own kitty. After the IPO extra account, that additional this amount of 85 crores has come back to us, and we have discharged that liability on behalf of General Atlantic because they are the foreign investors and the tax liability discharge is the responsibility of the company. So that was the arrangement. As far as the director of General Atlantic resigning, it is as per our article of association and as per the shareholders agreement with General Atlantic. As their shareholding has come down, so as per the shareholding agreements, they can have one director. So one director is continuing, and we have a very good association and guidance from them. So that continues. So it is just a arrangement as per the shareholding agreement.
Sure. And just a quick second question, sir, was it's sort of a clarification. You called out the minority interest of the EBITDA contribution of hospitals in which you do not have 100% ownership. At the EBITDA level, you said is about 15%. Is that what you correctly called out?
Yes, approximately.
Yeah, because as we look down the profit and loss reported numbers, so that number comes down quite substantially in terms of finance costs and other expenses to the PAT line in terms of non-controlling interest. So I was just trying to reconcile that. So it is 15% of the EBITDA is what you said.
Look, minority interest is being calculated on the PAT, not on the EBITDA. So what has happened, these acquired assets, a few assets are near, though they are on the growth path and the trajectory, they are EBITDA positive, but because of the depreciation and the interest, the PAT is lower on that assets. That is where this minority interest you may be seeing is a little bit lower, but going forward it will change. That should change.
Right. So your reported number of the acquired assets EBITDA which you show, that's what we are trying to reconcile. And this 15% number that you shared is helpful, sir. So thank you for that clarification, and all the very best, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shri Hari from PC Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Firstly, a clarification. You mentioned that the share of COVID-related COVID is around 25% of the revenue. So is the share in EBITDA also comparable?
So, Hari, it should be on the same line. There is not much of the difference. In fact, maybe a little bit lower because of the government regulation, etc. So it may be slightly lower, but it is on the same line. So more than it's on the same line.
Yeah, and the related question is, how will the profitability compare during the two waves? You got a perspective about wave 2, but if you compare it with wave 1, was that lesser or more profitable?
Sorry, your question was not very clear. There was some disturbance on the line.
I mean to say, you have given a clarity regarding the profitability during wave 2. So during wave 1, how was the profitability for COVID-related treatment?
In the COVID wave 1 and COVID wave 2, there is not much of the difference, Hari. The only the difference has happened is that in the wave 1, nobody was aware of the procedures and etc. So more than less the profitability side, I don't think there is much of the difference.
In fact, the COVID-1, what happened in different states has different rules of the government. In the entire Andhra Pradesh, there was no COVID was being treated by our hospitals because the entire government used to treat by the government hospitals. As far as Telangana is concerned, initially the government used to treat. Later on, they have been allowed to do. So there is no impact on the wave 1 in Andhra Pradesh is concerned. A lot of non-COVID workers continuously doing, whereas in partly because of the lockdown in both the states that has been affected.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
So, it was definitely a good one for your company has been performed well. All the healthcare workers has done their level in the difficult situations of COVID. And moving forward, I think we will able to sustain the same thing like normal business. As we mentioned, quarter on quarter will be varies from different regions like festivals, these holidays and the schools. Many factors will come into the picture, and then rainy season, seasonal variation of the diseases and all. And whatever is the history that we have been done, and then moving forward, whatever we have been promised in the road shows, we are very confident that we will be able to achieve. Once again, thank you very much for joining with us, and take care of your health in this pandemic era.
Thank you. On behalf of IIFL Securities Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.